The store was a vision of elegance, standing proudly in a chic part of town. It was one of those high-end designer boutiques where luxury oozed from every corner, from the soft glow of the lighting to the sleek, polished floors. The air was scented with something delicate, the kind of fragrance that whispered of wealth and exclusivity. Every now and then, the rhythmic sound of high heels clicking against the marble floors would echo, as if to remind anyone who entered that this was a place where only the elite were meant to roam. Among the racks of elegant clothing and dazzling accessories, a young woman walked in, her heart racing as she took in the surroundings. Her eyes wandered over the expensive fabrics and high-end labels, her excitement bubbling up despite her nerves. She had worked tirelessly for months, pinching pennies and sacrificing little pleasures, all for this one moment. She was finally here, ready to treat herself to something special, a reward for her hard work. But as she looked around, the store's polished exterior seemed to make her feel small, like she didn't belong. The manager, a sharp-looking man in his mid-40s with a perfectly pressed suit and an air of superiority, noticed her immediately. His eyes narrowed as he looked her over, sizing her up. His gaze was cold and judgmental, making her stomach tighten with discomfort. It didn't take long for her to sense that she was anything but welcome in this place. The woman's fingers brushed delicately over the fabric of a stunning designer dress hanging in front of her. It was everything she had imagined: the soft sheen of silk, the intricate lacework, and the perfect shade of deep emerald green that made her feel like she could step into a fairy tale. She could almost see herself wearing it, her hair styled perfectly, walking into a special event with all eyes on her. For a moment, it felt like the reward she had been working toward for months, and she couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. But the longer she lingered by the dress, the more she felt a weight pressing down on her, as if the walls were closing in. She glanced around and saw the manager watching her from the corner of the store. His disapproving gaze was fixed on her, and his expression was one of quiet judgment. Every time their eyes met, she felt her excitement slowly slipping away, replaced by an uncomfortable knot in her stomach. She tried to push it aside, focusing instead on the beautiful dress before her. But the manager's eyes followed her every move. After a few minutes, the tension broke when the manager slowly approached her. His tone was condescending, his voice dripping with thinly veiled disdain. "I see you've got your eye on this one," he said, standing too close. "But I think you might want to try something more in line with, well, your style. Something a bit more affordable, perhaps." The woman's breath caught in her throat. She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just a comment, but her face burned with humiliation. She wanted to explain that she had saved for months, that she could afford this dress, but the words felt stuck in her throat. The manager's eyes glinted with judgment, and it felt like the entire store was watching her. She forced a smile, trying to defend herself. "I can afford it. I've been saving for a long time." But before she could say anything more, the manager dismissed her without a second glance, as though her words didn't even matter. "Well, if you're not prepared to make a purchase, I suggest you leave the store," he said curtly. The words hit her like a slap to the face. She froze, the room suddenly feeling much too small. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her cheeks burned with a deep, aching redness. She could feel the eyes of the other customers on her, the whispers already starting to spread through the store. Some were sympathetic, others were more curious than kind. She was standing there, exposed and small, and it felt like her dream of buying something beautiful had just been ripped away from her. The weight of it settled heavily in her chest, and she could feel the tears threatening to fall. How had everything turned so horribly wrong? She stood motionless, her hands trembling at her sides, wondering if she was imagining it all. Maybe it was true. Maybe she wasn't meant to be in this store, wearing this dress. Maybe she wasn't the type of person who belonged in places like this. The thought of walking out, humiliated, was almost too much to bear, but the more she stood there, the more she felt the sting of rejection. The laughter of some customers drifted through the air, and a small, cruel part of her wondered if they were laughing at her. She fought the lump in her throat, telling herself to hold it together, but she could feel the tears threatening to spill. All she had wanted was to feel beautiful for once, to treat herself to something special. And now, it felt like that dream was slipping away from her, leaving only the bitter taste of shame behind. Just as the woman stood there, feeling more defeated and humiliated with every passing second, something unexpected happened. The noise of the store, the whispers, the murmurs, all faded into the background. A sudden hush swept over the room, as if the air itself had thickened with anticipation. The faint click of heels and the soft rustle of shopping bags ceased. People began to glance toward the entrance, eyes widening, and then the murmurs started. Excited whispers, quick glances exchanged. It was happening. The manager, still standing by the woman, looked up in surprise. His confident, condescending air faltered. His eyes flicked toward the door, and his posture stiffened, the look on his face shifting from smugness to something else, disbelief, awe, perhaps even fear. And then, there he was, Johnny Depp. He walked into the store like he was stepping into a world he already owned, his presence commanding attention the moment he crossed the threshold. The woman couldn't believe her eyes. There was no mistaking him. His tousled hair, that signature loose shirt, and the sunglasses perched effortlessly on his face. His confident smile was a quiet declaration that he knew exactly who he was, and he didn't need to announce it loudly. The store, with all its luxury and exclusivity, suddenly felt like the backdrop of a movie scene, and she was the unsuspecting extra, caught in the middle of it all. The atmosphere shifted, the air electric with the celebrity's presence. For a moment, the woman just stood there, rooted to the spot. Her mouth went dry, and her pulse quickened. She blinked rapidly, trying to process what was happening. Was she dreaming? Was this really Johnny Depp standing in front of her? Her jaw hung open in disbelief, her heart racing with a strange mix of awe and nervous excitement. She had always admired him from afar, watching his movies and reading stories about his charm. But to see him in person, right here, right now, it felt unreal. Meanwhile, the manager, who had moments ago treated her like she was invisible, sprang into action. His entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The confident sneer disappeared, replaced with an overly polite, almost fawning smile. He straightened his suit, smoothing imaginary wrinkles, and took a few hurried steps toward Johnny Depp. His voice, which had been laced with condescension just moments ago, now dripped with insincerity as he greeted the celebrity. "Mr. Depp, such an honor," he said, his voice practically oozing with sycophantic charm. "Welcome to our store. Please, let me know if you need anything. We have the finest collection, of course, for someone of your taste. May I offer you something special?" The woman stood frozen, still in shock, watching as the manager practically tripped over himself trying to please the star. He was suddenly all smiles and respect, a far cry from the rude, dismissive attitude he had shown her. It was as if the very presence of Johnny Depp had completely unraveled his cold, superior mask. And for the woman, that was when the shift truly began. The manager, now desperate to make a good impression, was practically glowing with excitement as he hovered near Johnny Depp, eager to show him the best of the store's collection. His voice was overly smooth, every word carefully chosen to flatter the celebrity in front of him. "Mr. Depp, you have such impeccable taste," he said, his hands almost trembling with excitement. "Allow me to show you our finest pieces. These are exclusive items, just for those with a true appreciation for the craft. I believe you'll find them to your liking." He gestured grandly toward a set of designer suits that only the wealthiest could afford, all while trying to hide his obvious desperation to please. The woman watched in disbelief, her heart sinking with each passing second. She had seen this behavior before. Rich people were treated with respect, while those like her were overlooked and dismissed. The manager was doing the exact opposite now, treating Johnny Depp with the kind of respect she had desperately wanted just moments ago, but had been denied. Johnny Depp, however, wasn't oblivious to the subtle and not-so-subtle dynamics of the situation. He took note of the manager's dramatic shift in behavior the moment he walked through the door. His eyes flicked briefly to the woman, who was still standing awkwardly near the racks, and then back to the manager. A small, knowing smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "You know," Depp began, his voice calm and deliberate, "it seems like your store has some rather rude policies. He spoke with such ease that it was hard to tell whether he was joking or serious. "I thought you'd treat every customer like royalty here, not just the ones you think can afford it." The manager froze for a moment, the words hitting him like a slap. He opened his mouth to respond but hesitated, unsure how to deflect the quiet accusation. It was a subtle observation, but it cut deep. The manager was now caught in the middle of his own hypocrisy. Feeling emboldened by the celebrity's words, the woman took a step forward, a sudden surge of courage rising within her. For the first time since entering the store, she felt like she had the right to speak. Johnny Depp had given her the confidence she needed, and she wasn't going to let the manager's treatment of her slide. She straightened her back and looked the manager directly in the eyes. "I did try to buy something earlier," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But when I tried to make my purchase, you made me feel worthless. You told me I couldn't afford it, and dismissed me." She paused for a moment, feeling the weight of the words. "I never imagined I'd be treated this way for wanting to buy something for myself." The manager's face turned bright red, his eyes darting nervously between her and Johnny Depp. He stammered, trying to deny it, but his words caught in his throat. I didn't." But Johnny Depp wasn't about to let him off the hook. "That's not how you should treat anyone, no matter who they are," Depp said firmly, his voice quiet but powerful. "It's about respect, not price tags." The manager's face twisted in frustration as he tried to come up with a response, but no words came. He had been exposed. The smug confidence that had ruled him just moments ago was gone, replaced by a flustered panic that made him seem smaller and smaller. He tried to maintain his dignity, but it was clear to everyone in the store that he was out of his depth. The staff, who had been watching the entire exchange in silence, exchanged looks with one another. They had seen the manager's treatment of the woman, and now they saw his complete collapse in front of Johnny Depp. There was no going back. The manager had lost all his authority, and the respect he had once commanded had evaporated. With the woman standing tall beside him, Johnny Depp gave the manager one last look, a slight shake of his head. Then, turning to the woman, he smiled warmly. "You deserve to feel good about yourself," he said, his voice soft but genuine. "Never let anyone make you feel less than you are." The manager, still trying to salvage what was left of his dignity, offered no response. He simply stood there, defeated and speechless, while the woman and Johnny Depp shared a brief moment of quiet solidarity. The store had changed in that instant. The woman, once humiliated and unsure, now felt empowered, a sense of pride blooming within her. And as she walked out with the dress she had dreamed of, she couldn't help but smile, knowing she had finally been treated with the respect she deserved. As the tension in the store began to settle, Johnny Depp turned toward the woman, his usual charm now softened with genuine warmth. He could see the change in her, how she had gone from feeling small and defeated to standing tall, empowered by the unexpected support. "You know," he said with a kind smile, "you deserve the best. Never let anyone make you feel less than that, no matter who they are." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his words a quiet affirmation that made her feel seen and valued. Then, in a gesture that felt almost surreal, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pen. With a flick of his wrist, he signed a piece of paper and handed it to her. "Here," he said, offering her a light-hearted smile. "Keep this as a reminder that no matter what, you're worthy of feeling good about yourself." The woman, still in shock, but now with a renewed sense of confidence, took the autograph with a grateful smile. It felt surreal, like something straight out of a movie, but in that moment, it was the boost she needed. With newfound courage, she turned back to the racks of clothing. She spotted the dress she had originally wanted, the one that had once seemed out of reach. But this time, it didn't feel out of place. She walked up to it, and as she took it to the counter, she glanced at the manager. His posture was deflated, the arrogant air he had once carried gone, replaced by a quiet, almost apologetic demeanor. Without another word, he processed her purchase, his hands shaky but compliant. As the woman stepped out of the store, the door chimed behind her, and the cool air of the outside world hit her face. She took a deep breath and smiled, a small but genuine curve of her lips. She had walked in feeling insignificant, But she was leaving with something far more valuable than just a designer dress. She had walked out with her confidence and sense of self-worth restored. In that moment, she realized how powerful a single act of kindness could be. The experience had been painful at first, but it had transformed her. The encounter had been a reminder that the way people are treated should never be dictated by their wealth or appearance. And for her, it was a turning point, a lesson in standing up for herself, in refusing to let anyone define her worth. The narrator reflected, knowing that everyone, at some point in their lives, feels small in the face of judgment or rejection. But it's the small moments of kindness, like Johnny Depp's support, that have the power to turn the tide. The woman's story was a testament to the strength we all have when we're treated with respect and dignity, and that no one should ever be made to feel less than they truly are. Thank you for watching this powerful story of resilience and kindness. It's a reminder that no one should ever be made to feel less than they are, no matter where they are or who they're surrounded by. A small act of support can change everything. If you enjoyed this story and believe in the power of respect and dignity, please don't forget to like, comment, and share it with others. Subscribe for more heartwarming stories and join us next time for another inspiring journey. Stay kind, stay strong,